Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. My task is not just to inform you, but also to excite you in this graveyard stretch only a few minutes before coffee. For those of you who may be confused, I am the global chairman of the MEF, but as you can see, they've taken my chairs away. So today I'm the founder and CEO of Iproov. We are the world's leading provider of biometric liveness and biometric face verification for onboarding and authentication. So I want to talk to you today about, to just take a step back, given the context of the conversations we've been having so far, and just talk about, well, what is the role of biometrics in fraud prevention? In a telecoms community where there's a lot of discussion about messaging in its various forms and where OTPs, for example, form the very bedrock of the messaging industry, what is the role of biometrics? Well, there are really three things to share with you today. We learned earlier today that one of the most important things one can do to prevent fraud is to follow the money, is to find out where the fraudulently obtained cash has gone and follow it so that we can catch the fraudsters and hold them accountable. And the key step in preventing that kind of money laundering is the AML process and the identification, the KYC of the ultimate beneficiary. This is now increasingly being done remotely, and people's documents tie their characteristics, their identity characteristics, to them by means of their face. So if and only if you can verify that that remote face actually matches a genuine identity document, then you can be reasonably sure that you know with whom you are dealing, and then you can do various other checks. You can find out if they're crooks or fraudsters, but otherwise, if they are non-existent people, the trail will go cold, and facial biometrics are a very good way of preventing non-existent people setting up beneficial accounts. The second thing that we know is that in the process of authentication, there is a tremendous amount of victimhood in which people's OTPs are stolen from them by the process of social engineering. There are cases, including very large cases all over the world. We understand all that this is one of the great risks of knowledge-based or even device-based authentication. Biometrics, as I'll describe in a minute, cannot be shared. They cannot be socially engineered. And the third is that all of these methods that we've developed based upon messaging, based on RCS, based upon device-based certificates, are all tied to a device. And if, as very nearly happened to me at the last MEF event, some youngster on a bicycle cycles up on the pavement and snatches my phone away, luckily he was cat-handed enough that he dropped it, that would be my credential gone, and then there's a recovery process, which is very vulnerable. Biometrics can complement device-based credentials to secure users against fraud. Let me make a distinction. I'm not today going to be talking about the sorts of biometrics that you all have on your phone, the fingerprint readers or the Face ID. Device-based biometrics are something fundamentally different. And basically, they are a convenient substitute for your PIN number. They can be changed and shared by access to the PIN number. So device-based biometrics are just a PIN number under another form. They're not the sorts of biometrics that I'm going to be talking about now. What I'm talking about now are not device-based biometrics. They are cloud-based biometrics, where the key processing functions are done not on the device, but they're done in the cloud, and the information is transmitted back. Why does that matter? Three things. If the biometric credentials are stored in the cloud and not on the device, then even if that youngster had succeeded in snatching my phone, I would not have lost my credential because my credential is in the cloud. And I could have logged on, I could have secured my account and logged on and done everything else I needed to do from what I fondly remember as being an internet cafe, or from a device that I borrowed from somebody else, or from a brand new device. Device independence is a fundamental requirement for any kind of two-factor authentication, and in some cases it's absolutely essential for any kind of account recovery, which is often one of the most sensitive and vulnerable points in any identity journey. So device independence is a key characteristic. The second is that it is non-shareable and unstealable. I hear a lot about people saying, oh, the problem with biometrics compared to knowledge is I can reset my password, but I can't reset my face. You can steal a password, but you cannot steal my face, at least not without a scalpel and a great deal of blood. You can copy it, but you can't steal it. I can give someone a copy, but I can't share it. A genuine biometric, be it a face, be it a fingerprint, be it an iris, a genuine biometric cannot be stolen, it cannot be shared. Its key value, as you'll see in a minute, doesn't come from it being a secret. It comes from something quite different. And the third is that if you process biometrics in the cloud, then you can do fraud analysis. Then you can see the transactions. We'll talk about that in a second. But if you do it in the cloud, you can see what's going on. Whereas if you do it on the device, you have no visibility whatsoever of the threat actor's activity, their methods, or their success. This rather obvious point to all of you who've been discussing fraud and the need to do fraud analysis and look for signals is one that is highly contentious in the world of biometrics today. Let's talk about this question about non-stealability and non-shareability. If you want to make biometrics useful, you have to solve three problems. First, you have to check, is this the right person? Am I looking at the right person, or is it somebody masquerading? Is it somebody who's hoping to chance it? Biometric technology used to be rather crude and rough, and you needed very complex and unique biometrics like irises or fingerprints in order to distinguish that. I'm afraid that is half a decade old. Face biometrics are now, and even voice biometrics, are perfectly good enough to determine whether you're looking at the right person or not. But that's not the problem. That is the easy bit of it. The next bit of it is, are you looking at a real person, or are you looking at a copy, a physical artifact, like a photograph, in the case of a face, like a photograph, or an image on an iPad, or as here, a mask like this one here that my wife absolutely refuses to have in the house. Or, in the case of irises, people get very excited about irises because they're so complicated. Well, the fact they're so complicated just makes them, just over-engineers them solving the right person, but it turns out to be very easy to produce an artifact that copies an iris. You take a photograph and you stick a contact lens on the top and you spoofed an iris. So it fails the real person task in many cases. And defending against presentation attacks was the critical feature of any robust, fraud-resilient biometric solution, but not anymore. Because the world has moved on to digital injection attacks, powered in large part by generative AI. Why mess around with non-scalable, handcrafted solutions like photographs or masks like this, which can cost £5,000, when you can get generative AI and deepfake technology to produce an absolutely flawless artifact, a flawless imitation of the genuine article, which you then directly inject into the data stream. This in its primitive form is what is about to kill voice biometrics, because it turns out that the digital injection of voice biometrics cannot be detected. There's not enough information in voice to do so. And this is giving rise now to a huge problem for banks in the United States in particular. The detection of digital injection attacks is a very, very hard problem. And unlike the other two, it's a problem that is continuously changing. The faces haven't changed in about 500,000 years. Presentation attacks don't evolve. Photograph technology, 3D printing technology, it's not changing. These are static problems, and technology is very good at solving static problems. But digital injection attacks are getting orders of magnitude better, and every year, with the result that it's a continuously changing and morphing problem. This is a challenge which is understood very clearly by fraud professionals, but is still not acknowledged by much of the biometrics community. And the only way you can address, as you know, a continuously changing solution is active threat management. So what you've got to do is you've got to watch everything that is happening, look for signals of fraud, triage them down, analyze the patterns of what is being done, learn from how the attackers are attempting to defraud this biometric system, and evolve the biometric system so that it ceases to be vulnerable to such attacks, whether or not they've been successful, and sometimes, of course, they're going to be successful. And only if you can do that on a worldwide basis and on a continuous feedback loop Does any fraud solution, not just biometrics, but only if you do those things, do any fraud solution have any chance of working? This is particularly true. Somebody said it earlier. We find ourselves up against extraordinarily well-resourced, well-funded organizations, serious organized crime, and large state actors. Their resources are many, and there were lots of manys there, orders of magnitude greater than what we can command. But we have one advantage. We learn more every time they attack us from them than they learn from us. And we have an information asymmetry. And that information asymmetry, that ability to observe them and learn from them faster than they can learn from us, is absolutely crucial to us staying ahead. This is, to those of you who are fraud professionals, this is obvious. Iproov runs the only biometric security operations center in the world. Nobody else does it. It is extraordinary. We heard earlier that ultimately fraud protection comes down to a problem of identity. So it's all very well for biometrics to be used to enroll and authenticate people, but they become credentials in the assertion of an identity, and that identity is what enables organizations to trust consumers, organizations to trust other organizations. We were just hearing about GLIF, G-L-I-F. That is a digital identity which biometrics can be used to authenticate, but ultimately we have an evolving question about the way that digital identity is going to work in the world. This is a slide that I've shown to the MEF before, but it shows that we're moving from centralized through federated identity. Today, most identity is federated towards user-centric identity. And one of the key messages that I want to finish with, in sharing with the MEF community, is the accelerating trend towards the use of decentralized identity, not just by enterprises, but also by governments and by commercial organizations. Until a very short time ago, this was buried deep in standards committees and techno festivals. That's all changing now. And the technology of verifiable credentials and its associated technology of mobile driving licenses is coming. And it will change the way that we all do business, and it will change the way in which we all protect ourselves against fraud, because we will evolve rapidly to an environment in which the subject, whether it's an organization, a director, or a person, will have an identity wallet into which cryptographically signed credentials about them, therefore trustworthy credentials about them, will be transfused, and when they're asked to prove things about themselves, they will be able to do so by sharing some or all of the information in that wallet. Nobody else will have access to that. There will be no great honeypots of data. There will be no mastodontic organizations responsible for assembling large amounts of information about people. There will be no further power struggles over control of identity. The existing IDVs who have played such an important role in the ecosystem today will continue to do so. They will help support the credential issuers in the assurance of those credentials. And the technology of authentication will shift from being used by the relying parties, as they are today, to being used by the wallet owner themselves to assert their authenticity to the user. This is a huge architectural shift, and it will impact everybody in this room. And in general terms, it will make the world a much better place. And if we are able to integrate this new architecture into our ways of doing business, we will be able to keep the fraudsters at bay better and better. It is important to note that there are a number of single components involved in that ecosystem, but single components will not solve the problem. So it is the creation of this new ecosystem will require collaboration and partnership between different specialists, different providers. People like us who specialize in assuring the genuine presence of people's body parts, other people who specialize in wallets, others who specialize in the cryptography, people who look at activities and behaviorals. So we're all going to have to work together in order to establish trust, deliver security, and ensure usability. How are we going to do that? Well, I have to say that after 22 years in MEF, I continue to be impressed at the fact that this is the only trade association which manages to build and bring together an ecosystem across a value chain rather than just within one vertical slice of it. So if there's any organization which can help catalyze the sorts of partnerships that are required, it is absolutely the MEF. If as part of that partnership process, you want to talk to an organization who is unrivaled worldwide in establishing trust in remote users with remote face verification, working for people like the Home Office, the Cabinet Office, the National Health Service, the Australian government, the US government, UBS, ING, worldwide, as the preeminent providers of ensuring the personness of a remote user, come and talk to me. Thank you very much.